Sorry, mic was off. Okay, guys, my name is Suraj of USN 1V21IS058 from SVC Bangalore. I'm going to teach about data models in Dbms. So basically, what are database models? A data model in database management system is a concept of tools that are developed to summarize the description of the database. Data models provide us with a transparent picture of the data, which helps us in creating an actual database. It shows us from the design of the data to its proper implementation of the data. Types of relational models. First one is conceptual data model. The second one is representation data model. The third one is the physical data model. So this is the diagram of the data model. From the data model, it's been divided into three parts. The first one is conceptual, second is representation, and the physical one. So what is conceptual data model? The conceptual data model describes the database at a very high level and is useful to understand the needs or requirements of the database. It is this model that is used in requirement gathering process before the database designers start making a particular database. One such popular model is the entity relationship model, which is basically ER model. The ER model specializes in entities, relationships, and even attributes that are used by database designers. In terms of this concept, a discussion can be made even with non-computer science, which is basically non-technical, and stakeholders, and the requirements can be understood. And what is an ER model? An entity relational model. It is a high-level data model which is used to define the data and the relationships between them. It is basically a conceptual model of any database which is easy to design the view of the data. So let us see the components of the database model. What are the components? First one is entity, and next one is attributes, and then relationship. An entity is referred to as a real world object. It can be name, place, object, class, etc. These are represented by a rectangle in an ER diagram. Attribute. An attribute can be defined as the description of the entity. These are represented by ellipse in ER diagram. It can be age, roll number, or marks for a student. Relationship. Relationships are used to define relations among different entities. Diamonds and rhombus are used to show relationships. Characteristics of a conceptual data model offers organization-wide coverage of the business concepts. This type of data models are designed and developed for a business audience. The conceptual model is developed independently of hardware specifications like data storage capacity, location, or software specifications like Dbms vendor and technology. So we'll go to see the second one, which is representational data model. This type of data model is used to represent only the logical part of the database and does not represent the physical structure of the database. The representation data model allows us to focus primarily on the design part of the database. A popular representational model is a relational model. The relational model consists of relational algebra and relational calculus. In this relational model, we basically use table to represent our data and the relationships between them. It is a theoretical concept whose practical implementation is done in physical data model. The advantage of using a representation model is to provide a foundation to form the base for the physical model. So we are talking about physical model in this representation model. So we are gonna see in depth of the physical data model. The physical data model is used to practically implement relational data model. Ultimately, all data in a database is stored physically on the secondary storage device such as disks and tapes. This is stored in the form of files, records, and certain other data structures. It has all the information on the format in which the files are present, and the structure of the database is the presence of external data structures and their relation to each other. Here we basically save the tables in the memory so they can be accessed efficiently. In order to come up with a good physical model, we have to work on the relational model in a better way. Structured query language, which is SQL, we mainly use in these days, is used to practically implement relational algebra. This data model describes how the system will be implemented using a specific Dbms. This model is typically created by the DBA and the developers. The purpose is actual implementation of the database. So what are the characteristics of the physical data model? Characteristics of the physical data model. The physical data model describes the data need for a single project or application. Though it may be integrated with other physical data models based on project scope, data model contain relationships between the tables that we Sorry, bro. Developed for a specific version of the DBMS location, data storage, or technology to be used in the project. Columns should have exact data types, lengths, assigned and default values. Primary and foreign keys, views, indexes, access profiles, and authorizations, etc. are defined. So let us see the advantages of the data models. Data models helps us in representing data accurately. It helps us in finding the missing data and also in minimizing data redundancy. Data model provides data security in a better way. The data model should be detailed enough to be used for the building the physical database. The information in the data model can be used for defining the relationship between the tables, primary and the foreign keys and the stored values. So what are the disadvantages of the data models? Let us see. In the case of the vast database, sometimes it becomes difficult to understand the data model. You must have the proper knowledge of the SQL to use physical models. One smaller change made in structure require modification in the entire application. There is no set data manipulation language in DBMS. To develop data model, one should know physical data storage. Now finally, the conclusion. Data modeling is the process of developing data model for the data to be stored in a database. Data models ensure consistency in naming conventions, default values, semantics, security while ensuring the quality of the data. Data model structures helps to define the relational tables, primary and foreign keys, and the stored procedures. There are three types of conceptual, logical, and physical. The main aim of conceptual model is to establish entities and their attributes and the relationships. Logical data model defines the structure of the data elements and set the relationships between them.